Welcome back to The Price of Business. I'm your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. I tell you, it's your business to get familiar with what's happening in this economy and do something about it. I've got Steve Beaman here on the program with the Beaman Group, which I'm working with here in both extensively and intensively in the Houston area and in Texas. And always delighted to have Steve Beaman on the program. How are you, sir?
Well, hello, Kevin. It's always great to be on with you, fellow patriot and good businessman.
So let's talk a little bit. What's interesting is that one of the things you've been talking about so often is this complacent attitude and surrender attitude that's so pervasive among business owners today. The government has now set down this regulation, and instead of saying, we're going to fight this regulation, they say, okay, what do we need to do to accommodate this regulation? And it made me think, you say that often on this program, and to me it's very thoughtful observation. It made me think, now that Obama is talking about unilaterally using executive orders for gun control, are individuals going to be that complacent when it comes to their guns?
Kevin, it's good that you bring it up again. I'm actually going down to Peoria, Illinois next week, where I'll be speaking to about 200 folks about the importance to get over the apathy and realize that it does matter. We are one by one eliminating our liberties and turning them over in return for a paycheck. Give us a little more stable economy, we'll give you our liberty. Yep. Give us another benefit, we'll give you our liberty. And when we wake up in the next generation, they will find that they have no liberty left.
Yeah, I remember reading about in the Roman, back in the days of the Roman Empire, that they would used to, and people always think I'm going to be talking about the fall and decline of the Romans, but actually what this story is interesting is what they would do is they would create a trough where they would put food in, because they were trying to get specific types of animals. So they would have the trough that would appeal to those specific animals. And they would start one day, with the food. And next, as they would go along slowly over a couple of days, they would build around it. They would build around the trough. And then eventually they would close the gate and they would have the animal that they were feeding over the last several days. And really, we're very similar. We're getting trapped as they build a trap around us as we eat at the trough.
Well, I hope, Kevin, that the folks who listen to your program, who by definition are one of the enlightened people because they listen to you,
well, thank you.
I hope they realize that Robert Reich, former Secretary of Labor, who is a big proponent of the socialist movement in the United States, was at a speech one time where right with me and some other people, he said, you have to understand that we will move the frying pan to more heat each and every day, so slowly that by the time it's done, you'll all be cooked and you won't even know it. He actually said that, and it was as explicit as that.
I would absolutely love to get a copy of that speech. If you have any information on that, send that to me.
I'll see if I can't find it. It was many years ago, of course, in another life when I was involved in those things, but I'll see if I can't track it down because that is the mentality of the statists. They want to turn the heat up ever so slowly so that people, especially business people, take that attitude of, well, what am I going to do? I vote. I'll just, take steps in my business to make it work. And what we are doing is regulating out small business by the day.
Yep.
You look at the huge regulations coming out with the new Affordable Health Care Act, new EPA regulations, new National Labor Relations Board, not even to mention the Dodd-Frank legislation that's beginning to impact. Businesses are getting cremated. They've got to stand together with a voice to say enough is enough. We are the economy in America. We will not let this government affect us to this point.
Yeah, talking to Steve Beaman. He's with the Steve Beaman Group. He's a regular every single week here on The Price of Business. I was reading over at usdailyreview.com, and it was talking about the decline of economic freedom, not only now in the United States, but it's really becoming a global phenomenon. Almost in every major part of the world, economic freedom is in decline, according to the Heritage Foundation and the Wall Street Journal. I was delighted, and I never thought I would say this, but I was delighted to see that the United States is still number 10. It was number 10 last year, but, a few years ago it was 4 or 5. And so at least it's stabilized. It is no longer plummeting. But ranked number 10 means that the United States is now only somewhat free rather than mostly free. You had to be the top 7, which, by the way, a Latin American government is in the top 7, and that is Chile. Chile has more economic freedom than the United States.
And Kevin, what bothers me as much as that is we are transitioning from a nation that stood as a beacon of liberty about political freedom as well as economic freedom. We just had a speech, or an interview, I'll say, with Jeffrey Immelt of GE, where he was praising the communist Chinese government for its successful 5-year plans and how their growth rate was something to be envied. Well, let me share with Mr. Immelt what he's missing is that China operates with zero political freedom and is virtually a slave state. I don't want to see America in, again, this search for more financial prosperity give up all of its political freedoms.
Right. Absolutely. Interesting information. I wonder how familiar are you? I'm just curious, not to put you on the spot, but I've been revisiting the great anti-federalist papers. I don't know how familiar you are with them, but man, they nailed spot on the problems this country was going to have with the U.S. Constitution. And this is amazing. And I mean, if we adhered to the Constitution as it is written, America would be phenomenal. America was phenomenal. But what's interesting is everything they predicted in the Anti-Federalists has proved to be true.
It's true, Kevin. And if you go back like you have and I have and you study these documents, you realize that the framers of the Constitution and the authors of those documents understood thousands of years of history. These debates are not new. They've gone back to the times of Greece. So we have the history to show what type of governments work and what type of governments lead to tyranny. And the framers set up a very finely balanced document that gave us some federal control for peace and stability, but also maximized our freedom from the possibility of tyranny. And we are giving that up one day at a time.
Yep, we're just chipping away at our own freedoms, and they're, they're not even saying thank you. It's just expected. They give to us. They give our money back to us. It's like the old saying about the guy and his dog that were stuck on a deserted island, and he was starving to death, and so he cut a piece of the dog's tail off, cooked it, and split it with the dog. And, of course, the dog thanked him by licking his hands. And so we're slowly becoming like that.
Well, and what bothers me about it, Kevin, people don't connect the dots here to realize that as we look, for example, today at the gun control debate, when we start to eliminate the power of the Second Amendment, it slowly follows behind that we lose the impact of the Fourth and the Fifth Amendment. And those are the ones that outline property rights. So for the business owner, for the individual who desires financial prosperity, these issues, even though they seem tangential, do matter.
Yeah.
Private property is at the core of our nation's wealth development. And if we start to whittle away at that, which is the same logic as those fighting for gun control, that was an outdated concept, that we live in an enlightened era where private property is not as important. If people give on that, we will find that the American dream is gone, and that those of us who believe in freedom and liberty have lost the freedom to build our own prosperous family, just like we've lost our freedom to defend it.
Yep, that's right. The Second Amendment is the First Amendment in protecting all of our other liberties. And people need to get over this notion that the Second Amendment was designed for hunting. It wasn't designed for hunting. It was designed to defend our liberties. That's what it was for.
Kevin, you're so right with that, and I think that's the biggest mistake the media is making. Now, I will tell you and I both know the Steve Beaman Group and the efforts we've done are to empower people with financial and business knowledge and other skills to help them move forward. We don't like to just dig into political issues because they're there. It's not the Rush Limbaugh program.
Right.
But here's what happens, and folks need to realize this. This battle over the Second Amendment, this coming battle over the debt ceiling, these usurpations of power by the executive branch will affect how they run their business, how they run their lives. These are important issues. And that apathy does not work anymore. They must stand together. They must make their voice heard, and they must get to Washington and say, you cannot do these things.
Yep, Steve Beaman Group. You can learn more about him at stevebeamangroup.org. But if you want to get involved in the organization here in Houston, which you really need to, email me at info@usabusinessradio.com. That's info@usabusinessradio.com. Steve Beaman is on every single week on this program, keeping you informed, and you can see why. Thanks, my friend.
Thank you, Kevin. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.
You too. All right, when we come back, we're going to have much, much more for you. You need to stay tuned to it right here on The Price of Business.